What about the ways to mitigate stress? I know in your book, you talked about meditation, you talked about exercise, you talked about being in nature. Are there any of those three that you want to dive into quickly to tell our listeners another way to help reduce stress?
Yeah. So stress is a fascinating thing. And I'm sure there's no shortage of podcasts, articles, books talking about ways to lower stress. I think it's important to note that we need stress and it's a continuum. You need some activation of your stress response to motivate you to do anything. If you weren't stressed, you'd just sit there. You need to have that desire for change, which is really what stress is. It's some sort of kind of obligation on your body to do something differently. So the goal isn't to get rid of stress. It's to have the right type of stress to get you to your objective and not to go into that chronic stress that we know is so problematic. So as it relates to that, I would say your goal is to lower as much as you can unnecessary sources of stress. But then what I'm maybe more interested in is how do you wire your brain to better tolerate stress so that it isn't such a big deal, so that it's not so crippling? How do you move yourself a little bit backwards on that stress curve so that you're getting the beneficial effects of stress to be motivated, but not suffering all of the chronic issues like inflammation that are a result of long-term activation of the stress system? And so, I'm not going to blow any minds here as far as talking about the de-stressing techniques. You guys know about meditation, you know about exercise, you know about eating healthier. You probably know about the gut microbiome and its role on stress. I'm really a big fan of kind of two principal strategies. And meditation, whatever you want to say about it, bottom line is doing anything outside of the typical stuff that people are doing today is a de-stressor. And so meditation, closing your eyes and not looking at a screen and not watching the news, that is a de-stressor in part because you're just not focused on the stressful modern world. So checking out of this hotel of the modern world where every moment is stress is generally a good thing. And so the point that I would advocate for here, as much as is possible for people listening, is the nature piece. And that's something that I think, we've kind of known in our bones for a long time, but the science has really shown us in the last 10 to 20 years that nature exposure is a great way to deactivate the sympathetic nervous system and activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And this works on several levels. It's partially the psychological piece. It's partially through, it seems, the olfactory system. So the olfactory system, or your sense of smell, is kind of fascinating because unlike the other nerves going into the brain, this one kind of bypasses the need to go through the thalamus, the relay station. It goes directly from the nose into the brain. And so scientists have thought that the chemicals that you find in nature, these phytoncides, which are these volatile organic compounds that you can find in, for example, pine trees or cedar trees, that these things appear to trigger an anti-stress response in your brain quite quickly. There's similar stuff for vision. There may be even some benefit to hearing certain nature noises. But what I tell people is, getting out into nature, fantastic. If you can get out into nature, go camping, go hiking, whatever, absolutely. But for many of us, including me right now, because Oregon is very smoky, getting a plant inside is an awesome way to de-stress. And if you can't even get a plant, try some essential oils. I'm not saying, that you need to take those essential oils and go crazy. But what I am saying is get an essential oil like a cedar oil or a pine oil, something like that, because then you're going to be benefiting from these natural molecules that help to calm down the stress response. So there's really kind of no excuse for not leveraging the nature science. And I think that as it relates to stress reduction, it is one of the lowest impact things, or biggest impact, but lowest cost, lowest amount of time needed to be spent. Just get some oils or get an indoor plant, or if you can, get outside.